I envy cats. While I'm struggling with the decision of whether or not to take in my mother-in-law, Megan, my cat lies there on his back, purring softly in his sleep. He's just so cute, whether he's eating or using the litter box, it's almost unfair. Even though he never comes when called, he always snuggles up to me when I'm crying, and I think that's unfair too. He's really good at getting people to do things for him, and I envy that so much. But it's because of such a free-spirited creature that we became a family. This is a story of the stormy time when our family gained one more person and one more cat. I'm Jennifer. I'm 35, working in the service industry, raising my 7-year-old son, Andrew. I work shifts, including weekends, and it's a busy life. My husband, Mike, who is 2 years older, also works in the service industry. Andrew has been attending a childcare center since he was 1 and now goes to after-school programs. The rule is that whoever has the time picks him up. We share household chores, and sometimes Mike makes dinner and waits for us. It's a loose rule that could quickly lead to trouble if either of us slacks off, but we've managed well so far because we're both serious by nature and grew up with working parents. Andrew is a very good boy, not just because I'm his parent, and he's never caused major trouble at the childcare center or school. He's introverted and doesn't have many friends, which always nags at me. But because he's been going to school without complaint, I haven't pursued it deeply. Although I am slightly worried about his introverted nature, our family relationship is good, and we live peacefully. However, lately, there have been issues with Mike's family. One weekday afternoon, on my day off, I was cleaning the house, leisurely thinking about how to spend the day. Then the doorbell rang, and 2 women's faces appeared on the screen. At first, I thought it was an insurance or religious solicitation, but I realized it was worse than that and sighed. Reluctantly, I opened the door, and a hand with long fake nails grabbed the door tightly. "Hello, Jennifer." "Hello." Blinking with eyelashes that looked like they could make a sound, Stella, my brother-in-law's wife, 3 years older than me, smiled. I reluctantly smiled back, and Stella pushed an elderly woman in front of her. "The thing is, I'm having lunch with friends today. So please take care of Megan until evening." "Again? You can't just drop this on me." I almost said I was troubled but stopped myself. Megan averted her eyes and looked down. Stella didn't care about our reactions. "Well, she's annoying, and everyone holds back because of her. You're free anyway, right?" "Thanks." "Hey!" Without waiting for my agreement, she left Megan and quickly went away. An awkward silence fell between Megan and me. "I'm sorry, Jennifer," she muttered apologetically, still looking down. "It's not your fault, Megan." I couldn't take it out on her, so that was all I could say. For about 3 years now, my brother-in-law Brian's family has been living with Megan at my in-laws' house. People might think that Brian's family is living there because Megan wanted them to, given how Stella chases Megan out for trivial reasons like today, but that's not true. 3 years ago, Brian was laid off due to poor business performance at his workplace. Stella had been a housewife since they got married, and they had a daughter, Alice, who was in the 6th grade. Brian, now 40, wasn't particularly skilled or efficient at his job, making it difficult for him to find new employment and avoid financial hardship. So, they moved in with Megan, who had been living alone in her large house since her husband passed away. Megan was initially taken aback by the sudden demand for cohabitation, but she reluctantly agreed, feeling it was her duty since it was her son's incompetence that had led to this situation. For the first 6 months or so, Stella remained quiet. However, as time passed, she began to take advantage of Megan's introverted and non-confrontational nature, gradually becoming more and more overbearing. She left all the household chores to her, while she herself either lounged in the living room watching TV or went out to lunch with friends. Megan could manage cleaning and laundry, but she wasn't particularly good at cooking. "I can't stand Megan's terrible cooking," Stella often complained to me. I thought she should just cook herself, but it seemed she couldn't fathom any option that involved her putting in effort. Recently, Stella started inviting friends over for tea parties more frequently. Megan's house, decorated with antique furnishings from her late husband's collection, had a charming cafe-like atmosphere. Her friends seemed to love it. Encouraged by this, Stella wanted to invite even more friends over, but found her mother-in-law presence to be an inconvenience during her social gatherings. So, on my days off, Stella would unceremoniously send Megan over to my place. It was absurd to kick her out of her own home. Yet, she complied with her demands without protest. Megan, displaced by Stella, would sit on my living room sofa, sipping from her cup repeatedly while watching a shopping channel on TV, trying to hide her unease. Megan wasn't a bad person. But spending half a day with someone like Megan, who ended conversations with one-word responses, was exhausting. I couldn't just leave her alone, so I aimlessly busied myself in the kitchen, preparing dinner way ahead of time. I finished before noon, so while making sandwiches for lunch, I decided to speak to Megan. "Megan, is it okay if we have sandwiches for lunch?" "Yes, I'm sorry." "I don't mind, but are you okay with Stella treating this place like her own home while it's actually yours?" "Yes, well." Even when I pushed the conversation deeper, her vague responses would trail off into silence. I didn't like Stella, of course, but I also couldn't feel entirely sympathetic toward Megan, who simply let herself be pushed around. Mike was also bewildered by the situation at Megan's house. "I'm sorry about my family. You don't have to take them in next time." "It's easy to say that, but even if I refuse, Stella will just leave her here." "I see." Mike fell silent. He had a tendency to fall silent just like her mother. However, I've known Mike for a long time and believe we're on equal footing, so I didn't hesitate to press him for answers. "What does Brian think about all this? Does he just watch silently while Stella mistreats Megan?" "He does try to say something, but she blames him, saying, 'It's because you're so useless that we have to live with Megan,' so he ends up saying nothing." Pathetic. 2 years ago, Brian changed jobs, but since he started in a completely different field, his salary is as low as a beginner's. If Stella would work, they wouldn't need to live with his parents. "Yeah, but he's too scared to say that to her." Mike sighed, munching on a snack. "It's really pathetic." How did he manage to work in sales at his previous job with such a pathetic personality? Oh, that's why he got fired. This way, both Brian and Megan are just being taken advantage of. After these troubling days, one day, my husband and I finally had a day off together, and we were relaxing at home. Suddenly, we got a hysterical call from Stella. Her voice pierced my ears like a ringing noise, and all I could make out was, "The cat, the cat." Mike reluctantly got up and went to his parents' house. I decided to wait with Andrew while playing a board game, but Mike didn't come back for a long time. I wondered what they were arguing about this time. I started getting anxious and looked at the clock. Just as I was about to start preparing dinner, Mike finally came back. He was with Megan, who was holding a dirty towel. "Megan?" I was so surprised I couldn't help but shout, and Megan looked up at me with sad eyes. Then, in a cute voice, "Meow." "What?" "Meow." She meowed 3 more times in front of my confused face. No, she wasn't meowing. I took a closer look at the towel she was holding. The towel moved slightly, and a white tail peeked out. Then, blue sapphire-like eyes appeared and looked at me. Meow.
What? A cat?
I let out a strange voice in surprise, and Megan looked away awkwardly.
So, Stella is angry because she brought home a kitten. Well, yeah.
Mike took a big sip of the water I had prepared and let out a huge sigh. According to him, Megan found a kitten that wandered into the yard a week ago and took it in. Its eyes were open, but at about a month old, it was too young to survive on its own. They didn't know where it had come from or if it had a mother. But if they left it alone, it would quickly become prey for the crows. So, she consulted Brian and his wife. However, Stella was furious. She ordered Megan to throw it away immediately. But she couldn't abandon the kitten and secretly kept it in the shed, Stella discovered yesterday, making her even angrier.
You touched that filthy cat, so you should stay in the shed too,
she said, and made Megan spend the night in the shed. And this morning, Stella called us to take care of the cat and Megan. Seeing her and the kitten wrapped in a blanket in the shed, Mike couldn't hold back his anger. Stella's argument was that she didn't want the cat dirtying her stylish, beautiful home. Unusually, Megan stood her ground.
I'll clean and take care of it properly,
she pleaded, but Mike.
This is my mother's house, so if you can't respect her wishes, you should leave,
said angrily, and she kept cursing and refused to listen. Stella, who completely misunderstood that the house belonged to her, and Brian, who didn't admonish his wife, finally made even the usually mild-mannered Mike furious. He cursed at Brian and his wife, and in his rage, brought Megan and the kitten home with him. It was all so horrible, I was at a loss for words.
I'm really sorry for doing things without consulting you first. But I just couldn't leave Mom in that place.
There's no way around it. I may not be fond of Megan, but I'm not so heartless that I would leave her, an innocent woman, stuck in a storage room.
I get why Stella would be upset about suddenly bringing a cat home. But that house is not theirs. You should just kick out Stella and her family who are freeloading there. I told Mom the same thing. But she wouldn't listen, saying it's Brian's fault for being unreliable and that it would be unfair to Alice if they lost their home.
No way. Sure, if Brian and his family got kicked out, they'd be in a tough spot, and his daughter Alice would suffer. But that doesn't justify Megan being pushed out of her own home. Brian is a grown man. He should take responsibility for his own situation. As I stood there in silent confusion, Mike pleaded with such intensity that he nearly bumped into the table.
Jennifer, I know you have issues with my mom. But please, I'm begging you. I want to take her in. I can't bear seeing her neglected and weakened by Brian and his family. I'll minimize the burden on you as much as possible, please.
Mike. Mike's voice trembled as he begged for my forgiveness. Mike, who was usually so silent and reserved, was desperately pleading with me. It wasn't fair. How could I possibly refuse him when he was like that? I stood up quietly and left the living room. In the hallway, Megan and Andrew were looking at a cat sleeping in a cardboard box. I'm sorry for the trouble.
Huh?
Megan murmured softly, not taking her eyes off the cat.
I'm sorry I caused trouble for you and Stella by wanting to get a cat. I knew Stella would be angry, but I just couldn't abandon this cat. The cat we had 7 years ago also wandered into our yard just like this one. Oh!
I remembered that there had been a cat at my in-laws' house that died just before Andrew was born. Mike had been taking care of it since he was in high school, and his parents had adored it.
When this cat looked at me and meowed, I thought it might be the same one that had come back with a new coat.
Even though that's impossible. She gave a sad smile. So that's why she didn't give up on it. She usually just did whatever Stella said. I felt a tightness in my chest at this first glimpse into Megan's heart. We'll find a new home for it.
Until then, if I say we'll keep it in the shed, Stella should be okay with it.
Megan picked up the kitten from the cardboard box and stood up. I had to say something. But before I could find the words, Andrew spoke.
Let's live together.
What? I couldn't help but voice my surprise at Andrew's suggestion. Andrew, who was so shy and not very close to Megan, had said something so unexpected. Megan seemed just as shocked and stiffened.
Mom, is that okay?
Andrew looked up at me anxiously. Deciding something this important on the spur of the moment might lead to regret later. But I already knew I couldn't say no.
Can you promise to take good care of the cat with your grandmother?
Yes. Andrew looked straight at me and responded firmly. It was the first time Andrew had ever shown such strong determination to do something. It was the first time Mike had ever asked me for something like that. And it was the first time Megan had ever stood her ground on something. Really, like father, like son. But somehow, I felt that I could get along with Megan too. I had no choice. As Mike's wife and a mother, I had to make a decision.
Megan, if you'd like, please come live with us along with the cat.
The kitten meowed in response, surprising Megan. From there, everything happened quickly. When I told Brian and his wife that we were taking Megan in, they were surprisingly resistant. But their hesitation seemed to come from fear of being kicked out of their home, and when I assured them they could stay, they were overjoyed and agreed. They easily accepted the conditions that Megan would still own the house and that they had to maintain it and get along with the neighbors. They probably weren't thinking too deeply about it. While helping Megan move, Stella, with a sly smile.
That's what you get for pretending to be a good person.
Poor you. Whispered. I was exasperated by how nasty she could be, but I just played along and focused on what I needed to do. I did think it was wrong for her to be kicked out, but I kept quiet since Mike seemed to have a plan. Brian and his wife's daughter, Alice, a middle schooler, watched with a sullen face as Megan got into our car without saying a word. When Megan officially became a part of our family, she often sat in the corner of the room, looking either apologetic or uncomfortable. However, with the new kitten boldly running around the living room and getting into all sorts of mischief, Megan inevitably started spending more time in the living room as well. True to his word, Mike took care of everything around Megan. That said, Megan was healthy and capable of doing everything herself, and she took on the chores and laundry as a house guest. Megan was meticulous and loved cleanliness, so her room cleaning was impeccable. Having previously maintained an old and spacious family home all by herself, cleaning a modern, compact house seemed like no trouble at all for Megan. Even though we had a long-haired cat, there was hardly any fur to worry about. The garden, which quickly got overgrown with weeds, always had neatly trimmed grass, making the whole house look brighter. However, as Stella mentioned, cooking wasn't Megan's forte, so Mike and I continued to share the cooking duties. At first, I was unsure of her preferences in seasoning, so even preparing one dish was nerve-wracking. Noticing this, Mike divided the tasks. I took care of breakfast, and he handled dinner. He researched recipes from cookbooks and videos, ensuring the whole family could enjoy the meals, and cooked them every night. Mike's proactive efforts to keep his promise made him reliable, and I felt our relationship had improved compared to before Megan moved in. Andrew was completely captivated by the kitten and quickly became friends with Megan as well. Incidentally, it was Andrew who named the cat Bella. Thanks to Megan, he didn't have to attend after-school programs and spent more time with her. The quiet afternoons spent with Megan and the adorable kitten became a comfortable refuge for him. He started inviting friends over after school to show off the kitten and began sharing lively stories about school. Despite this, there was still a distant, cautious atmosphere between Megan and me, as if we were both trying to read each other's expressions. Conversations still didn't flow naturally, even when we were in the same room. Then, one day, I witnessed something surprising. That morning, feeling unusually thirsty, I woke up earlier than usual. As I headed to the living room for a drink of water, I found Megan already dressed and burying her face in the kitten's fluffy white belly.
Bella, you're so cute. Why are you so adorable first thing in the morning?
From Megan's mouth, which usually only uttered the bare minimum, words kept spilling out. As I watched in amazement, Megan lifted her face from the kitten's belly and our eyes met. There was a moment of silence. I was the first to laugh. I couldn't help it. Megan's face, covered in fur and filled with surprise, was just too funny. Megan, hiding her blushing face behind the kitten. "Please don't tell Mike," said. Getting to see this charming side of Megan made me feel more comfortable talking to her, even if the conversation didn't flow easily. Perhaps because she had been caught in her most embarrassing moment, Megan gradually started to joke around a bit. Over time, the wall between Megan and me disappeared, and by the time half a year had passed since she moved in, we had all settled into life as a family of 4 with 1 cat. Life with just the 3 of us wasn't bad, but since Megan and the kitten arrived, I felt there was more laughter and relaxation in our home. It really felt like all's well that ends well. Meanwhile, you'd think Brian's family would be happy without the gloomy Megan, but that didn't seem to be the case. Nearly a year after we started living together, Brian and his wife suddenly showed up at our house.
"Could you return Megan to us already?" "What?"
Out of nowhere, with a face full of entitlement, Stella demands Megan's return, leaving both Mike and me, and even Megan herself, utterly confused.
"Hey! You kicked Megan out in the first place, didn't you?"
"Don't use such violent words.
It makes us look like the bad guys."
Stella denies with a half-smile, which only makes my anger flare up.
"You two are truly the bad guys."
"Well, Megan was the one who brought home a cat without consulting the family.
You.
But I'll forgive her for that now."
"Megan, wouldn't you rather come back to your own home instead of living cramped up in this small house?"
Megan looks up at Mike and me with a troubled expression. A year ago, I might have been annoyed that she couldn't speak her mind. But now, knowing Megan's character, I understand that it's not that she doesn't want to live with us, she's just being considerate.
"Megan, don't listen to these selfish people. They probably just can't keep up with the housework, or maybe Brian lost his job again and they need money, right?"
When I bring up Brian, his shoulders jerk up.
"How did you?"
Did I hit the nail on the head? Seems I was right. There's no way they're coming to take Megan back out of pure goodwill, not after treating her like a burden all this time.
"Hey! How useless can you be?" But...
Stella, with a scary face, jabs the unreliable Brian in the side. Then she turns to us, adopting a smug posture.
"That's right. Brian got fired again because Megan failed at raising him. So you take responsibility."
"Are you nuts?
Blaming a 43-year-old man's actions on someone else?" "Shut up!"
Stella glares at me with bloodshot eyes. Then, in a tone I've never heard before, she pleads with Megan sweetly.
"Megan, the house is in chaos because you haven't been cleaning. You don't want your husband's precious collection to get dirty, do you?" "We're not asking you to work and earn money. Just like before, if you could just hand over your pension as living expenses."
"Please?"
"But..."
Megan falls silent, looking troubled. Sensing Megan's distress, Bella, who has grown into a full-grown cat, walks over with a cute meow. Stella's eyes light up.
"Wait, is this that filthy kitten? She's so cute now."
It's no wonder Stella is excited. Bella is a beautiful Persian cat with long, white fur and striking jade eyes. Even without a pet owner's bias, she's grown into an undeniably gorgeous cat.
If she had grown this cute, you should have told me sooner. She'd fit right in with my antiques.
There's no way I'm letting someone who matches cats with furniture take away an important family member.
If Megan promises to take care of everything and not break any antiques, she can come back with this cat. That way, neither Megan nor Jennifer can complain, right? You really are. Come here, come here.
Ignoring my anger, Stella reaches out to Bella. Sensing something off, Bella hisses at her. Feeling threatened, Stella screams and falls backward. Her large rear hits the cold entryway tiles with a thud.
Ouch!
Letting out an ugly scream.
What is this cat doing here? It's completely unruly. How can you keep such a badly behaved cat? Call animal control right now.
She raised her fist at the cat. At that moment,
Enough is enough!
Megan yelled at Stella in a voice lower than I had ever heard before. I was shocked to see Megan so angry for the first time.
The one who needs discipline is you. You're worse than a cat. What? Enough. Mike, give me the papers.
Sure. Hearing Megan's command, Mike brought an envelope and pen from the living room. Megan took the papers out of the envelope and wrote something on them. Then she grabbed her bag from the entrance and slipped past Brian and his wife, heading outside. As they stood there in stunned silence, Mike spoke clearly.
Mom went to see a real estate agent. She's going to sell the house. What? This means the house you're living in will be torn down in 3 months. What?
Brian and his wife opened their mouths wide in shock.
Remember when she said she'd kick you out if you didn't keep the house clean? But just for not cleaning.
Yes, that's what Mom thought too. But you were so awful that she finally woke up. She realized that spoiling you only made you more foolish. To the point where you'd suggest sending a living cat to animal control.
Ugh!
It's nearly impossible to evict shameless people like you from a house, so she decided to get rid of the house itself. The land has already been sold, so construction is unavoidable.
What? No way, no way!
Yes, Mike had been planning this ever since he took in Megan. He knew Brian and his wife would never change or treat the house with respect. All that remained was her decision. Brian and his wife's foolishness pushed her to finally act.
Over a cat! You're abandoning your own son over a cat?
Brian shouted with his face turning red.
Alice is almost in high school. You're abandoning your own granddaughter too?
Alice will stay with Stella's sister and her husband.
What?
Brian and his wife looked even more shocked at Mike's revelation. Alice has despised you since you kicked Mom out. You barely talk to her anymore.
That's just her teenage phase.
Blaming it on her teenage phase without facing her is exactly your problem. Stella's sister and her husband were also troubled. They couldn't leave their sweet niece in such a cruel home. Stella looked pale and wanted to say something. But no usual vulgar words came out. Mom will cover Alice's school and living expenses. You just worry about yourselves. You're being evicted next month.
Oh, no!
Mom has no reason to support you anymore. You'd better go home and start packing. Mike pushed the 2 dazed people out. After a while, Megan returned home with a refreshed look. I thought she might be shocked about demolishing the house.
Actually, those antiques were a pain to clean and handle.
But she smiled and said, of course, Brian and his wife didn't want to leave their in-laws' house and held out until the very last moment. However, Mike's burly friends packed up their belongings and took them to a storage unit. They left the couple at a nearby motel. Since both of them are still of working age, they should be able to find a job, even if it's day labor, and eventually rent an apartment. Thus, from living with Megan to dismantling the in-laws' house and supporting his niece, Mike's plan was executed perfectly. I was enamored with the reliable side of usually quiet. Now, even he is completely obsessed with the cat.
Bella, your belly is so fluffy like angel wings today.
Meow.
Why are you so cute? Are you an angel who descended to earth?
Meow. There is no trace of the silent, cool Mike when he buries his face in Bella's belly and closes his eyes with a happy expression. I wondered if he didn't send Brian and his wife to hell for our sake, but for the cat.
Maybe I raised him wrong.
Megan, watching from the side, is fed up. No, you're just the same.
Thanks to Bella, every day is fun.
Andrew laughed cheerfully.
Well, I agree with that.
Bella is Megan's savior and the idol who brings more smiles to our home. It's hard to imagine a time without Megan and Bella. Meow. Bella meowed with a smug look as if to say, of course. Today, too, our family is enjoying happy days surrounding our pure white cat.
You should get a divorce immediately. When we tested your daughter, I have to tell you this as a friend.
After saying that, Paul revealed something shocking. His words left me stunned and unable to hide my agitation.
What? What do you mean?
Paul is a pediatrician. We are at his hospital, but this isn't an examination room, just a private room. It seems to be a place where unused equipment is stored. Paul brought me here and strongly suggested I get a divorce. But more than that, he revealed an astonishing fact about my daughter, Kate. Listening in disbelief, I saw Paul steady his expression as if he had made up his mind.
This might be hard for you to hear, Rebecca, but please stay calm and listen.
Later, I filed for divorce as Paul advised. Due to a conflict with Tom at that time, I had to hastily move out. But perhaps it was a necessary step for a new beginning. My name is Rebecca. I live with my husband, Tom, and my daughter, Kate. In reality, Kate and I are not related by blood. She is the child of Tom and his ex-wife. I met Tom through a friend when I was 29 and he was 33. We bonded over our shared love for movies and food and eventually got married. People around me warned that marrying someone with a child would be tough, but I accepted it with determination. Due to a gynecological condition, I am unable to have children. I thought having a child would only ever be a dream, but Kate, a sweet girl, became my daughter. I was overjoyed. When we got married, Kate was only 3 years old and had little memory of her biological mother. His ex-wife passed away due to complications after childbirth. So, Kate treated me like her real mother and grew attached to me. While I felt happiness, I also felt a sense of guilt towards her late mother, so we all visit her grave every year. During these visits, Kate always says, "I'm so lucky to have 2 moms."
Kate.
Kate is kind and very sweet. I always held her little hand, determined to make her happy. This year marks our 5th visit to the grave. Kate is now 8 years old. As usual, we offered our prayers together.
Hey! Hurry up! Let's go!
Tom called out from a distance. Though he was visiting his late wife's grave, Tom quickly paid his respects and was ready to leave. Over the past few years, I've started to feel that Tom's behavior was a bit cold. If I didn't prompt him, he wouldn't even think of visiting the grave, which made me feel increasingly uncomfortable. I wondered if it was because he was a man, but even so, it seemed too cold. Tom was still kind to me, which made the disparity even more noticeable. After getting married, I realized Tom tended to neglect Kate. He works in pharmaceutical research and is always busy. It seems he left all the child rearing to his ex-wife and didn't know much about Kate. Even at the beginning of our marriage, we had exchanges like this. Where are Kate's health records? Health records? Where could they be? Do we need them?
Of course. They contain important information about her birth and vaccinations.
Tom had no sense of responsibility as a parent. I eventually found the health records after a lot of searching, only to discover that more than half of the vaccinations she needed by age 3 had not been done. Panicked, I took her to get the shots. Vaccinations are indeed a moral obligation, but Tom simply prioritized work and forgot about them, which was exasperating. It was unbelievable that someone working in a pharmaceutical company could be so indifferent about these things. I couldn't trust Tom with Kate's care, so I took the primary role in looking after her. Taking care of sweet Kate wasn't a burden, it was a joy. However, when I realized that young Kate didn't feel her father's love, my heart broke. Dad, he doesn't like me? That's not true, Kate. Dad is just busy with work. He cares about you a lot. Yeah, right. Thanks, Mom. Sweet Kate. Just hearing her call me Mom makes me so happy. But when Kate turned 10, Tom started to change a little. He offered to help with dinner. For me, who had started working part-time again, his offer was a relief. Maybe Tom finally felt he needed to do something as a father and husband. Although I thought it was a bit late, I decided to accept his offer.
Thanks, Tom. Can I leave it to you on your days off?
Yeah, of course. Looking forward to it.
I expect great things.
Tom, who had lived alone during his single days, was indeed a good cook. My burden was lightened, and my distrust towards Tom eased. I felt reassured that Tom also valued our family. But despite spending more meal times together as a family, Kate's mood started to change. Usually, everything was fine, but sometimes she would get upset and take it out on me. At first, I didn't understand why. Her teacher said there were no changes in her behavior, and she played happily with her friends. She had no complaints about her extracurricular activities or tutoring. But after observing her for a while, I figured it out. Kate sometimes felt unwell. That was why she was in a bad mood. She would have stomach issues and lock herself in the bathroom, struggle to wake up in the morning, or occasionally stay awake because she couldn't sleep. These bouts of illness happened about once every 3 months, and I thought she should get checked, so I consulted Tom.
But it's not the same sickness each time, right? It's just occasional bad days.
Well, that's true, but if she gets better quickly, it's not an illness. Don't worry. Rebecca, you worry too much. Tom didn't seem to take it seriously, and I began to think I was overthinking it. Indeed, it wasn't a constant issue, and the symptoms were varied. Even when I took her to the hospital, they said it was stress-related and prescribed some medicine. But I'm going to bed.
What? It's only 7 p.m.
I'm really sleepy. Good night. Kate rubbed her eyes and went to her room without taking a shower. Tom, who was doing the dishes, said, "Going to bed early and waking up early is a good thing." "Good night," he responded cheerfully. Didn't he think it was strange that she wanted to sleep 2 hours earlier than usual? I thought it might be pointless to consult Tom. The next day, I decided to take Kate to a different hospital. Kate, who looked exhausted, and I walked into the examination room together. I was surprised to see someone I didn't expect.
Paul? Right. You changed your name after getting married. Long time no see.
Paul, looking at the medical records, smiled. Paul, who went to the same high school as me, had become a pediatrician and worked at this hospital. I never thought I'd meet an acquaintance here. Paul, who was kind and secretly popular in our class, was still gentle and calm. Feeling reassured by the unchanged Paul, I reported Kate's recent symptoms. Her body doesn't show any particular signs of illness, but would you like to run some tests?
Yes, please.
Hearing this, Kate, who was sitting next to me, said, "Tests?" with an unhappy look on her face.
Don't be upset. It's important to check your health, Kate.
Okay. Good girl. Although she was almost 11, she was still just a child. Kate smiled innocently at my words. Paul also smiled at our interaction.
You know, you two really look alike when you're together.
What?
You're like two peas in a pod.
Hearing that, Kate and I exchanged glances. Even though we're not related by blood, we've grown to resemble each other as a family. It filled me with a warm feeling. Both Kate and I felt glad we came to the hospital today. The tests were over, and we were told to come back for the results later. Paul, at the end, said,
If any symptoms bother you again, please come back.
That made me feel reassured. However, in the end, the test results showed no abnormalities. Even after that, whenever Kate felt unwell, we would go to this hospital. Each time, Paul would conduct tests, and each time, the cause would remain unknown. Paul's expression grew more concerned with each visit.
A child feeling unwell once every few months isn't unusual. Doing tests each time seems like a hospital scam, don't you think? But what if something's really wrong with Kate?
I don't know, Rebecca.
I think you're an easy target for these doctors.
Hearing such insulting words about Paul made me furious. But I held back because I never wanted to argue with my husband in front of Kate. Seeing parents fight is one of the most distressing things for a child. Days passed dealing with occasional unexplained illnesses. Kate had turned 12 before we knew it. After a year of finding nothing, I started to think it was just common health issues during growth. One day, we went to the hospital as usual to hear the test results. While waiting in the lounge, Paul came over to me. He asked me to follow him and led us to a private room. It was a bit cluttered, seemingly used for storage most of the time.
For about a year, we've done 5 tests in total.
Yes.
Did you find something in Kate's test this time?
Calm down, Rebecca. Paul, with an unusually stern face, faced my anxious look. Then, with a serious expression, he said,
I think I know you quite well, Rebecca. You're an honest and kind person, not good at lying. Why are you saying this all of a sudden, Paul? Rebecca, this is advice from a friend.
Paul said something unbelievable.
You need to divorce your husband immediately. Something terrible has been discovered through Kate's tests. What do you mean?
I was shocked by the word divorce, but the mention of Kate heightened my anxiety. Paul, with a serious look, continued.
You need to separate Kate from him right away, or something irreparable might happen.
That's why I want you to consider divorce or at least separation to keep her away from him. Irreparable? What does that even mean? Paul quickly explained.
The first time you came here, we did a test. It revealed the presence of sleeping pills in Kate's body. What? Sleeping pills?
Has Kate ever used sleeping pills or sleep aids? I shook my head at Paul's question. Paul, after a moment of contemplation, spoke again.
This might be hard for you to hear, Rebecca, but I need you to stay calm.
Paul explained that with each test, some form of medication was detected in Kate's system. Sometimes it was a laxative, sometimes painkillers, and sometimes sleeping pills. It seemed likely that over-the-counter drugs were given by a family member, but the medical forms didn't indicate any medication. According to my accounts, we came to the hospital suddenly due to her symptoms, and there was no report of giving her any drugs beforehand. Furthermore, she showed symptoms like diarrhea when laxative components were found, and fatigue and sleepiness when sleeping pills were detected, clearly indicating drug-induced. This led to suspicions that Kate was being given medication by one of her parents, causing her to feel unwell. Naturally, I was also under suspicion. However, to continue the investigation without alerting me, the detection of the drug's components was kept hidden from me as well. Then, in the 5th test, it was confirmed once again that Kate was indeed being given some kind of medication regularly. Upon receiving these results, Paul decided to take personal action. It was a risky move for a doctor, but it showed how much he trusted me.
Isn't Rebecca's current husband working for a pharmaceutical company? Huh? How did you know that? Sorry, I checked your health insurance card. The pharmaceutical company where he works has had a bad reputation with the medical community for a while.
I had a bad feeling about it. I felt a chill run down my spine.
Do you think Tom could be giving something to Kate?
I can't rule out the possibility.
Kate tends to come over on Mondays or after holidays. Is there anything different about those days?
Something different. When he said that, I realized something. On holidays, Tom always cooks dinner. Our kitchen is not easily visible from the living room, so it's possible he could be doing something without us noticing. Paul's words and my growing suspicion towards Tom were becoming more and more believable. It couldn't be his own child. But seeing his behavior during visits to his ex-wife's grave and his indifference towards Kate until recently, I couldn't completely dismiss the possibility. Balancing my desire to trust Tom and my need to protect Kate, it was obvious which side the scales would tip towards. I wanted to protect Kate. Determined, I looked Paul straight in the eyes. I couldn't ignore this issue. A few days later, I immediately purchased a child surveillance camera online. I decided to use it to monitor Tom's actions in the kitchen. I camouflaged it with a box to avoid detection by Tom. Honestly, I had hoped it wouldn't capture anything suspicious. My feelings for Tom hadn't changed, and I wanted to believe he wouldn't do such a thing to his own daughter. But that hope was shattered a month later. One night, Kate experienced some abnormal symptoms. She had an upset stomach and kept running to the bathroom. Sensing something was wrong, I quickly checked the surveillance camera. What I saw was horrifying. Tom, preparing dinner as usual on the weekend. Taking something out of his pants pocket when he thought we weren't looking. A small bottle containing some kind of powder. He put it into one of the dishes. It was Kate's special soup bowl. Mixing the powder into the soup, his expression was not clearly visible from the camera. A mix of disbelief and anger surged through me. How could he give Kate something harmful? After saving the video, I went to the freezer. Since Tom cooked, we had been freezing Kate's leftovers. Frozen packs of Kate's soup. The remnants of that powder should be there. I made sure to push it further back to avoid Tom finding it. This was advice from Paul. Video alone would only be circumstantial evidence, so physical evidence was also needed. I calmed myself and prepared a glass of water for Kate, who had just come out of the bathroom. "Are you okay, Kate?"
"Yeah. This happened before, right? Maybe my stomach is just sensitive."
"Yeah. Maybe." Kate, looking exhausted and drinking the water, seemed in pain. I didn't want to hurt Kate by letting her think it was her own body's fault. I firmly vowed to protect her from harm, even if it was her own father. I gathered all the evidence and prepared to confront Tom. On Saturday, as soon as Kate went out to meet her friends as planned, I seized the moment to speak to Tom.
What? You said you had something important to talk about. Before that,
I questioned Tom, who was sitting on the sofa with his usual expression.
Tom, are you hiding something from me? Not just from me, but from Kate too. Hiding something?
What do you mean? For a moment, Tom's eyes flickered. I didn't miss that and said,
Take a look at this.
Pulling out my smartphone. I had recorded the footage on my smartphone. The screen showed Tom putting something into a powder. Tom was shocked when he saw it, and I spoke in a firm tone.
What is this? What are you giving to Kate? It's a misunderstanding. This is a supplement. A sample from my workplace.
I had anticipated such an excuse. But to say it so smoothly. He must have been thinking about how to get away with it even if he was found out. Clenching my teeth, I said,
Lies won't work. I've already had that meal preserved and analyzed.
Preserved?
Rebecca, what are you doing? A laxative was found. Tom, are you giving laxatives to a child as a supplement?
That is. Tom's eyes darted even more. Feeling anger towards Tom for trying to lie, I said mercilessly,
Excuses won't work. We've been finding substances in Kate's tests at the hospital. What? Rebecca, you said the tests were clear. That's why So you continued mixing the drugs?
Tom fell silent at my loud voice. That silence was like admitting to it. I wasn't lying when I said the tests were clear because that's what I was told. Maybe I should be grateful to Paul for this. Thanks to him, I could face Tom without any hesitation, even though I'm not good at lying. I asked Tom the most important question.
Why are you doing this? What do you gain from it?
Knowing he couldn't talk his way out of it anymore. Tom took a deep breath and said something unbelievable.
You're exaggerating, Rebecca. I just did a little experiment on Kate. What? An experiment? What I gave to Kate was a trial product my company is developing. It's like a clinical trial.
I couldn't understand what Tom was saying. He didn't even look apologetic, so he might not think he did anything wrong. My face turned pale.
You were giving that to Kate?
Calling it that is rude.
It's a new drug packed with our latest technology.
It's a good thing to give it to her.
A good thing.
I pounded the table in frustration.
You gave her laxatives and caused diarrhea even though she wasn't constipated, gave her sleeping pills and disrupted her routine. And you call that a good thing. Calm down. This is a necessary human experiment.
Human experiment. Tom's laughter scared me. Maybe I was dealing with a truly dangerous person. A feeling of fear welled up. But I had to be brave. If I lost here, Kate would be in danger.
An experiment? You just said you did an experiment on our daughter. That's right. It's hard to tell how much works with just animals. We could recruit for clinical trials. But that's expensive and time-consuming. With my own daughter, I can monitor her regularly and there's no added responsibility. It's an easy and cheap method, right?
My body was trembling. It wasn't from fear. I was shaking with anger. I couldn't believe that Kate had suffered so much because of this.
Don't be ridiculous. Tom, you aren't even a parent. You aren't even human.
That's too much, Rebecca. The Tom standing in front of me no longer looked like a person. He reached out to me with a sickly sweet voice.
I love you, Rebecca. That's why I never gave it to you. You knew it was dangerous, so you didn't give it to me? Then why did you give it to Kate? Because Kate is my daughter. It's only natural for a daughter to help her father with his experiments.
His words were treating our child as his property. This man isn't a father. He's not even human. There's no point in saying anything more. I handed Tom the papers I had been hiding.
This is pointless. Let's get a divorce. A divorce? Of course, I'll be taking Kate. With all this evidence, there's no way you'll get custody. And you just gave another damning statement.
I showed him the divorce papers along with a hidden voice recorder. When I pressed play, Tom's horrible words filled the room again. I stopped it quickly, not wanting to hear more than necessary, and for the first time, Tom looked shaken.
No! I don't want a divorce.
Now he doesn't want a divorce? I looked at Tom with cold eyes.
I've already signed my part. Now you sign it too. But I love you, Rebecca. I don't love you anymore.
I said it firmly. There's no love left for Tom, who has only hurt Kate. It will be hard for Kate from now on. But I can't leave her with someone who talks about human experiments. No, Rebecca.
Don't cry. Just sign it.
As Tom started crying, I felt my emotions growing colder. Tom had loved me before and after our marriage. But his love was twisted. I can't accept such love. After Tom signed, I took the divorce papers and left the house. I drove straight to the courthouse. Just as I was about to submit the papers.
No! I can't! I won't let you! Tom!
Tom arrived the moment I handed out the paper. Tom had followed me, probably in his car. He was completely mentally broken, ignoring the stares of others. He clung to my shoulder.
Let's try again! I'll never do anything like that again. Stop it, Tom.
With so many people watching, I was flustered. The courthouse staff just observed us. Maybe they see family drama like this often. But when Tom tried to forcefully pull me away, someone finally intervened. That person was Kate. What are you doing here? It was our daughter, Kate, the victim in this whole ordeal. She stepped between us and leaned towards me. I thought this might happen, so I came here first. It's okay. I'm ready for this.
Kate.
I was surprised by her sudden support. I had told Kate everything beforehand. The hospital results. The cause of her health problems. And everything Tom had done. It was hard to tell her the truth, but she deserved to know. When Kate learned everything, she was shocked but also seemed to understand. So that's why I felt sick only when Dad cooked.
Kate, did you know?
Yeah. I'm not a little kid anymore. It's astonishing how children grow up so fast. Come to think of it, she'll be in middle school next year. She had grown up so much, my daughter. Feeling a bit emotional, I told Kate that Tom and I would be having a serious talk soon. I also mentioned that divorce might be a possibility. Although I hadn't told her today was the day, smart Kate had figured it out. Perhaps her excuse about meeting a friend was a lie. She must have left the house early and waited at this courthouse.
Kate! Convince Mom not to do something stupid.
Still thinking Kate knew nothing, Tom said that. However, Kate's sharp gaze made Tom's shoulder twitch.
Dad, I know everything. That's why I can't be with you anymore.
Kate.
A dad who gives his daughter strange drugs is scary.
As soon as Kate said that firmly and loudly, the atmosphere in the courthouse changed. There was a stir, and the looks from those around us became harsh.
Didn't that girl just say she was given drugs?
By that father? Isn't that serious? The murmurs of the people reached Tom's ears, making him turn pale. And then,
"Excuse me. Can we have a word?" "Huh? The police?"
a police officer who happened to be there approached us. The officer grabbed Tom's arm as he tried to escape.
"I've been concerned since earlier." Her comment really caught my attention. "I'm sorry, but could you and your daughter come with me too?"
Yes. Things were escalating quickly. But perhaps this was a good turn of events. With his arm still held by the officer, Tom's face turned even paler.
"I didn't do anything."
"We'll hear more at the station, so let's go."
"Okay."
With the stern officer glaring at him, even Tom couldn't resist. He silently began to walk beside the officer. Once quiet, Tom was put into a different police car from us and taken to an interrogation room. Kate and I spoke with another officer and submitted evidence. The hospital was also contacted, and Paul cooperated with his testimony. It became increasingly difficult for Tom to escape the situation. Tom was eventually arrested. The interrogation took several days. During that time, I made sure to submit the divorce papers again. I was relieved to gain custody smoothly. Tom had done something truly unforgivable. The moving process was also done hastily. I decided to move to a place Tom wouldn't know while he was still detained. Luckily, there was an available apartment near Kate's school, so I signed the lease. But staying so close might mean Tom could find us once released. I still had that worry. What if Tom barges in again? However, such worries turned out to be unnecessary. Tom wasn't just detained, he was indicted. The reason was Tom's job at a pharmaceutical company. During the interrogation, questioning about drug management and experiment data revealed the company's overall misconduct. Poor drug management, falsified experimental data, and a different manufacturing process than reported to the authorities. All these were extremely malicious, and what seemed like a family issue turned out to have nationwide implications. The police took this seriously and changed the way they handled the case. Tom, holding an important position in the company, was seen as highly responsible and was indicted. The scandal at a major pharmaceutical company became big news and was sensationally covered by the media for a while. I could only watch in stunned silence. In the end, Tom was fined and sentenced to 2 years in prison. I felt genuinely relieved that I had divorced him before it came to this point. If Paul hadn't urged me to get a divorce back then, our family might have been stigmatized for having a criminal in the family. I feel bad for Tom, but I didn't want to be involved. I can't thank Paul enough for his advice. I felt relieved, but there was one problem. Our household income suddenly dropped. Regrettably, our family had been relying on Tom's high income. I'm taking him to court to ensure he pays child support, but I never know when he might stop paying. I also looked for a full-time job, but it was hard to find one quickly. We were facing financial hardship. Just when I was feeling hopeless about our financial future, I got a call from an unexpected person. It was from Tom's mother, my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law, Sarah, lives alone far away. She's always been a rather cold person who doesn't involve herself much in her son's family affairs. When I attended family meetings as Tom's second wife, she never seemed very interested. I don't really know much about what kind of person Sarah is. Sarah spoke calmly on the phone. "I'm sorry, Rebecca. I'm really sorry Tom did that. No, it's..." Even though I did it to protect Kate, I knew that I had been the one to push Tom into a corner. I was prepared to be blamed by Sarah, Tom's mother. But Sarah didn't seem to have any intention of blaming me.
I should have opposed his second marriage. I was worried about Kate and thought it would be good for her to have a mother.
But I'm done with Tom. Then, Sarah offered to give Kate a living inheritance. I was surprised by her sudden offer.
Are you sure, Sarah?
It's fine.
I've already saved for my old age, and I was thinking of leaving the rest of my estate to my only son, Tom, but now.
Sarah spoke with a hint of sadness in her voice, explaining that she had been receiving frequent letters from Tom in prison. I thought they might be letters of affection for his mother, but they weren't. They were demands for money and requests for job placements. I was thoroughly disgusted with Tom, burdening his mother even in her old age.
He would just waste it if I gave it to him. I'd rather give it to my granddaughter, Kate.
Sarah. I realized I had misunderstood Sarah. She seemed uninterested, but she genuinely cared.
Of course, we'll keep this a secret from Tom. I'll tell him I used it all myself. Thank you so much, Sarah.
I thanked her repeatedly. Of course, I couldn't rely solely on this inheritance. I eventually found a full-time job and started anew. Apparently, after Tom was released, he tried to find Sarah, but she had already moved into a nursing home, so he couldn't locate her. No wonder. I was the one who arranged her admission. We also moved for the second time when Kate started middle school. Everyone in town knew about the court troubles, so we decided to move far away. Kate was happy to move and start fresh in middle school. Now, Tom has no idea where either his parent or his wife and daughter are. It seems sad that he has been abandoned by both, but it's his own fault for trying to conduct inhumane experiments on his daughter. People who don't value their family won't be valued by them. It's as simple as that. Tom had to learn this lesson the hard way. And as the years passed, Kate turned 18. Kate had grown into a young woman and had already surpassed my height. Today, Kate is leaving home. Kate, who is heading to college in Boston, is about to start living on her own. Worried, I kept giving her advice at the door before she left. Kate gave me a wry smile.
I'm going to be fine. Mom, you should focus on your own happiness.
She leaned in close as if sharing a secret.
I gave Paul a little nudge to ask you out. What? I trust him with you, Mom. Bye now.
Kate laughed, waved, and walked out the door. Actually, since then, Paul has been looking out for us in many ways. Sometimes he takes us out for meals or gives us gifts. I was taken aback. Kate really has grown up. No, she's already 18. An adult. Her thoughtful words about caring for me made me happy. My sweet, considerate Kate. The memories of the time spent with my beloved daughter are enough to make me feel fulfilled. Feeling content, I looked up at the sky from the doorway. There, the clear blue sky stretched out endlessly.